Self-care. What does that look like?
Thank you.
Is that like going to the bathroom on your own?
Oh wait, I need that.
I get to like shower alone? I don't know. What does taking time for yourself mean exactly?
Simply put, self-care is looking after your health and well-being. So it could be your physical health or your mental health, your spiritual health, and then your emotional and social well-being. But I think at the moment, it's kind of a bit of a buzzword, and I think that can open up a little bit of misconceptions about what self-care really is. It's more than just having your basic needs met. We often joke as parents about how difficult even those basic things like sleep and eating well can be. To me, that's just a part of your basic needs met, and self-care goes beyond this. Think about whether it recharges you, whether it stabilizes you, and whether it helps you grow.
How do you even find what that is?
Think about what we enjoyed doing before we were parents, how we used to like to spend our free time, and those things can kind of help us in the present. Some things might be still unobtainable to parents, like if you love going out and clubbing, it's a bit hard to do that with your little one. But if you were really into going to a gym class or doing a yoga class or going to live bands on the weekend, you might not be able to do those exact things because it does mean you're taking time away from your kids, but you can try and integrate them into your day. So if you liked going to the gym class, maybe it's about finding a local boot camp where you can take your kids along and then they can have a play and you can do the boot camp. For some parents, that's even too much. So putting on a video, like a YouTube video of a gym class or a yoga class, and having your kids join in as well, or at least play alongside or tear up the room around you, can be a bit more achievable. And sometimes, if you liked going to live bands, maybe it's about listening to the music you like to listen to and not just playing kids' music all day and in the car.
I actually found myself running to the cleanup song. And I was like, okay, we need to figure out something different. I've lost myself completely.
Those kids' songs can become quite triggering, I feel, as parents. You hear them too much, you're like,
You recommended reflection. Do you recommend journaling or something to see kind of what you did before?
I think different people will gravitate towards different types of reflection. Some people, it might be just thinking about it. Other people, it might be journaling. Other people might really struggle to think back. So it might be looking at past photos.
A lot of the times people think self-care can be just when the kids are napping and you're doing laundry or sitting for a second and scrolling through your phone.
Yes. And that's where I think self-care is really individual. Like with social media and scrolling through your phone, some people might really find that a good way to connect with their friends or other parents going through similar experiences, and they might find that relaxing. But it can also be quite stressful and a negative experience as well. So taking into account how it makes you feel can be really important. I really like that you mentioned nap time, because we often couple self-care and having our own needs met with our children going down for a nap. We're kind of like holding our breath.
Self-care doesn't need to be the kids away necessarily.
Yeah.
That's nice. Why do we feel bad when we take a break for ourselves?
I think that a big thing is that we live in a society where productivity and busyness is glorified. The first thing we normally ask someone when we meet with them is, what do you do? Or if we're catching up with a friend, it's, what did you do today? Or what have you been doing? Or if you're asking about someone's future, you're like, what are you going to do this week or on the weekend? It's all about doing. No one really asks like, oh, so what do you do for rest? Or when do you get to have a break? And these things get amped up, particularly in parenthood, right? Where it's just expected that parents go, go, go and live for their children and suppress their own needs. The stereotype of the super mum. Super mum is framed as like the best mum, but she's the best mum because she does it all. There's like a failure to acknowledge that actually maybe what makes up a really good mum, if we have to label mums, is the mum that also can take a breath and have some time to regroup so that she feels more energized and has more capacity to be there for her children. as best as she can and as in the way that she really wants to. So I think that whole story of being busy is the gold standard is a big thing. I also think that particularly in Western societies, parents have become so isolated and unsupported for so long that it seems so normal. Another factor is that often when we look back at our childhoods, our parents didn't model self-care to us. So we don't really know what it looks like to have our needs met with our children. And we don't really see it as the norm. So then we feel guilty and we feel selfish for addressing our own needs because there's this pattern of that. If you're a parent, you sacrifice your own needs for your children, rather than we don't want to sacrifice our children's needs, but we want to have a balance between that parent and child.
What happens if when your kids get up, your bucket isn't filled? What can you do in that situation?
Two things. Maybe you still needed a longer break. You know, the length of time you actually had taken isn't enough to recharge you. But I think it's also useful to use that experience as a signal that maybe then the day-to-day routine that you have is a bit too overwhelming. If you can look at ways of making things a little bit easier when your kids are around, then you might not need as much of a break away from them, which I know is easier said than done.
Yeah.
But I think a simple way is just letting go of the rules that make life harder. We often place really high expectations of ourselves, and maybe it's about readjusting those rules.
Anything else that you would add for parents when it comes to self-care?
I think it's important to reframe self-care as something that doesn't need to take up additional time from your day. It could be as simple as being compassionate to yourself as a parent and reminding yourself that you're doing a great job and you're doing what you can and that that's enough. My name's Rebecca Cefai and I'm a psychologist and I'm the face behind Growing Gently Psychology. I'm based just outside of Sydney. I see clients in private practice for individual therapy and I also support other professionals